Menma, Menma. Naruto's eyes watered when he was called that. He sat cross-legged on the floor of his or Menma's room, wondering how he could get out of this unreal world. Sakura seemed to enjoy it. Sasuke paid more attention to her, grooming her with flowers and phrases that made her faint, and Naruto began to laugh. Sasuke's playboy was far worse than the loner in his world. Meeting him was supposed to bring some satisfaction, but Naruto quickly realized that it wasn't his Sasuke. In the platonic sense. Menma! Just as he had come to terms with the fact that it wasn't his mother, he opened the door and looked inside with a smile, and only a bath towel thrown over her nakedness. Naruto froze in place, a red streak running down the bridge of his nose when he saw her, a woman who was an exact replica of his own mother, the Uzumaki Kushina of this world. No less radiant than the woman he had met during the conquest of Kyubi, she was still someone's mother, otherwise she would not have addressed him as Menma. Her skin glowed under the soft light, curves hinting at hidden desires that made his pulse quicken against his will, her chest rising and falling with each breath, drawing his gaze irresistibly. "Your father is not at home today," she said cheerfully. "But it's still that night." Naruto raised an eyebrow at the ambiguity of her statement. "That night?" The door opened completely, and she walked in, puffing disapprovingly and puffing out her cheeks. Naruto remembered his mom saying that she was once named a tomato. This woman puffing out her cheeks could be called that. "Menma," she sighed. "You've been acting so strange all week. Usually, you look forward to tonight." In Konoha, there must be a law forbidding indefiniteness. So many people who leave sentences in limbo. "I need to clean up some things in the kitchen," Kushina chirped, returning to her cheerful self advantageous compared to her aggressive, physical self, and turned around. Unwittingly, but unable to do anything about it, her sacrum bulged out in front of her son, curves in all the right places, though he didn't want to notice it. The way her hips swayed slightly sent a wave of heat through him, his body reacting with a subtle throb that he tried to ignore, his breath growing heavier as the scent of her skin lingered in the air. She left him, a bewildered boy sitting in the middle of someone else's room, recovering from the sight of his mother, who was painfully hot, pacing around in a pale pink towel. The fabric clung to her damp skin, outlining every contour and leaving little to the imagination, stirring an unwelcome desire deep within, her form etched in his mind, making his pulse race even faster. "Bath?" He sighed and rubbed his head. Well, he loved baths, and this would distract him from everything, or so he hoped, though the lingering image of her form made his breath come heavier, his body trembling slightly with unresolved tension. "It's definitely different," Naruto muttered as he sat down on a small stool where he could rinse and wash before enjoying the fragrant, salty water of Namake's bath. He reflected on the differences between this house and the apartment he grew up in. The difference was huge, but simple. In one case, there was a small bathroom where he had to sit with his knees up to his chest if he wanted to take a bath, so he always preferred hot springs. And the other was this one, Namake's bathroom, which was practically his own miniature hot spring. If Naruto could take anything with him, it would be this house. Maybe imposter parents. It is difficult not to feel kinship with them, he thought with a heavy heart. There are so many similarities, but he refused to accept this illusion as salvation. Kushina's Uzumaki and Minato's Namake's were dead, and he couldn't change that. Yet the warmth in her eyes, the gentle curve of her smile, tugged at something primal inside him, stirring a heat that spread through his veins like wildfire. "Arg! Stop thinking about it!" He scolded himself, and then put on his happy, squinted smile. "This bathroom is just super! I'll soak for hours!" He poured a bucket of hot water on his head and reached for soap, feeling the steam wrap around his bare skin like a lover's embrace, heightening every sensation and making his skin tingle with anticipation. "It's more like the Menma I know!" The giggles took him by surprise, but he suppressed the urge to turn around. He turned pale and blushed, completely naked, as the woman walked in and closed the entrance/exit of the room. Without a doubt, she was wearing only a towel. He swallowed hard, his throat tightening. Maybe not even a towel. The thought made his hardness twitch involuntarily, heat pooling in his core, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Kushina approached her son from behind and took soap and shampoo for him. There was no better rapprochement than taking a bath together. Menma, even when he grew into a healthy teenager, never saw anything wrong with bathing with his parents. This was the custom of the Uzumaki clan, especially in the land of whirlpools. Entire families filled the hot springs, bathing with each other without any embarrassment. Her sweet boy liked to be rubbed on his back, although he always insisted that he could do his own hair when she washed his hair. It always made her smile. The poses of an embarrassed teenager. And now, she could feel the tension in his shoulders, the subtle shiver under her touch, her fingers lingering just a bit longer, tracing the lines of his muscles and sending sparks of desire through both of them. "What are you doing?" her son stuttered as she smoothed the shampoo on his hair, creating a clump of soft, fluffy lather. "Come on, Menma," she reproached. "Just let your mom wash your hair quietly for once." Naruto wanted not to make any noise, but he was all too aware of his nakedness. On a small stool, his legs were pressed tightly together, hiding his groin, though this had already caused an obvious reaction as Kushina leaned over his back, and the truth was revealed. The steam that escaped from his ears was hidden among the mist from the bathtub. Her breath was warm against his neck, sending shivers down his spine, her hands moving slowly, deliberately, building the heat between them with every gentle stroke. It was the flesh on his back, not the fluff of a towel. His mother. Menma's mother was naked and washed him, starting from his head and now, gulp, went down. Not the deep south, but her hands moved the soap loaf along his sternum, running in circles over his body. Didn't she know how awkward it was to snuggle against the back of a naked boy? He had once dragged Tsunade-bachan from the bar on his back, and he would never forget the sensation of those two huge balls. With Kushina, everything was different. They were smaller, but two buds pressed against his shoulder blades, hard and insistent, fueling the fire in his veins, her body pressing closer, her heat mingling with his in the steamy air. You want the full story, without censorship? Then rush to my Patreon. For just $4 a month, you unlock over 380 episodes of epic fan stories, from fandoms you've never even heard of. From classics like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, to One Punch Man, DxD, and tons of taboo crossovers found nowhere else. Link in the description, or pinned comment. Subscribe now, and drown in unfiltered adult heat. One sub, the entire NSFW multiverse, in your pocket. He closed his legs, but his still burst out. The relentless beast broke free from its cage. With a temperament akin to Sakura-chan, he was out of breath and feared a concussion if Kushina approached him from the front. His body trembled, desire pulsing through him like a drumbeat, every inch of his skin alive with the proximity of her bare form. "Okay," Kushina muttered, moving to Menma's back and rubbing his tense muscles. "You have to relax. Family baths are always your favorite." Her fingers kneaded deeper, eliciting a soft groan he couldn't suppress, the heat between them building with every stroke, her touch lingering on his skin, tracing patterns that made him arch slightly in response. Naruto cursed Menma again. Why was he such a mama's boy? Or is it a secret perversion to see your gorgeous mom naked in an innocent setting? The steam-filled room only amplified the intimacy, her scent mingling with the soap, driving him wild, his hardness throbbing painfully as forbidden thoughts flooded his mind. Another bucket of warm water sank down. He shuddered from the pleasant sensations. The dirt washed away the water, the warmth embraced him. She topped up the water from the low shower, gently warmed her son, and rinsed him again. 2 more times and he was creakingly clean, but he felt so dirty. The water cascaded over his skin, heightening every nerve, making his hardness ache with need, his breath heavy and uneven as the warmth seeped into his core. His hardness hurt, as did his pouch. How long had it been since he had been released? Long enough for the dreaminess of the bathroom to seem like the perfect place for explicit fantasies. But no! Just not with someone who looks like her mother. And yet its wand voted in favor. He admitted that his mother was not only beautiful, but also sexy. But what he would not admit was that he had 1 or 2 wet dreams with her participation. Dreams where her touch lingered, her body pressed close, leaving him soaked and yearning, the memories stirring a fresh wave of heat that made him tremble anew. Now climb into the bathtub, Kushina commanded, moving closer to Naruto to take his place. And I'll be with you soon. Naruto, puzzled, rose to his feet, his hardness wagging in front of him, and then turned to her. He tried his best not to notice the sexiness of her naked form, high, large chest, the nipples of which were covered by a hand reaching for the shower head, a body toned up by shinobi training, thin but slender and long legs, the slightest hint of crimson hair knocking out from under her closed eyes. Common cases like this one in the women's hot springs ended with his ears plugged when his sexy jutsu bleed from his nose. But Kushina just stared at her son and waited. Her eyes held a spark of something unspoken, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths that mirrored his own desire, her skin flushed with the same heat that coursed through him. Ahem. His jaw clenched, his lips tightened, and his eyes wandered. Don't you need help? He said this without thinking. His manner of wanting to be useful after years of neglect betrayed him. Kushina seemed startled, and then her warm smile shone like a golden light in a mist. I'd like that, Menma. She put down her toiletries and sat up straight, her hands folded in her lap in anticipation. Her long, beautiful curls hung low, covering her back and the back of her head. Naruto was grateful at least for that. But as she shifted, her thighs parted slightly, a wave of heat radiating from her that made him throb harder, her body language inviting, pulling him deeper into the charged atmosphere. Wait, said Kushina suddenly, as if some thought had occurred to her. And with one deft movement, her hair was tied up in a bun, and Naruto looked along the entire length of Kushina's spine to the noticeable bulges of her butt. That's it. Go on, Menma. Her voice was softer now, laced with an invitation that sent his mind reeling, her back arching just enough to accentuate her curves, drawing a low groan from his throat. Naruto grimaced, leaning under the weight of his hardness. He was in her blind spot. Want the uncensored 18+ part where the tension explodes? Only $4 per month on Patreon, 380+ scorching episodes. Fire. There was little chance of this. He will just have to put up with it. It is not the easiest thing to do when a naked person stands in front of his own mother, waiting for her to wash his back. Only her back. Naruto's lower lip tightened over his upper lip. He was only supposed to wash her back, right? But the temptation to explore further gnawed at him, her skin so smooth and inviting under his trembling fingers, each touch sending jolts of electricity through them both. He started, at least, from that place. A small area, the smallest part between the shoulder blades, and he stayed there for a long time, afraid to wander anywhere else. Circle after circle, up and down, side to side, over and over again. Each pass made her arch slightly, a soft sigh escaping her lips that fueled his pulsing need, her body responding with subtle shivers that mirrored his own growing desire. The water will get cold if you stay that long, Kushina grumbled, looking at him over her shoulder. Sighing, she raised her hands up and clasped her fingers at her head. Just hurry up. Her movement caused her chest to lift, nipples hardening in the steamy air, drawing his gaze irresistibly, the sight making his breath hitch and his hardness pulse even stronger. Naruto's eyes were as wide as saucers, and his mouth was a wavy line. Drops of sweat appeared on his body, and this made his hardness even stronger. Raising her hands in this way, she revealed her figure, allowing him to look at her chest. Maybe the clothes she wore were too tight on her curves. Maybe the fullness of motherhood overlapped with this reality. His mother was well built. The sight made him ache, wetness gathering as his body betrayed his forbidden thoughts, his hands itching to reach out and feel the softness he craved. Not mother, not mother, Naruto reminded himself as he shook his head. Just a very similar woman who looks like her mother and thinks that I am her son. He placed the washcloth on her body and with a bold, sweeping movement he ran from her spine to the middle of her abdomen, covering her navel and doubling back, right under her chest. He tapped them with his hand, but she did not react. Her chest swayed only slightly, and then remained motionless. The softness under his palms sent jolts of desire through him, his breath ragged, her skin warm and yielding beneath his touch, building the tension to unbearable levels. He swallowed loudly. He was practically given permission. He should have been honest and not done that, but the evil alluring force made his hands on her chest before he could resist. Clenching, his head bowed to his happy groin, he whispered an apologetic prayer for his real mother's soul as his hands fumbled with her chest. Her nipples peaked under his touch, her body trembling with what could only be shared heat, soft moans escaping her as she leaned into him, the steam amplifying every sensation. Ha! Kushina looked down, her cheeks turning pink as Menma began to rub her chest. His bare hands were strange enough, but the way he treated her? Did he pick them up, press them together, run his fingertips over her protruding nipples? It was as if he was groping her. She was about to scold him, but she didn't. She shook her head. Her dear Menma would never stoop to that. Maybe just a little curious, like all boys at this age. Yet, her own breath quickened, a warmth spreading through her as his touches lingered, drawing out soft moans she tried to hide, her back arching further, pressing her body against his hands in silent invitation. Naruto had never believed before that touching a woman could cause ejaculation without stimulation, but he was already twitching dangerously and a clot of wetness was already hanging. Washing was almost forgotten. All he experienced and could think about were two heavy, soft balls that smoothly clenched in his hands. The tension built to a fever pitch, her back arching into his grasp, leaving them both on the edge of something scorching and unspoken, their heavy breathing sinking in the humid air, bodies trembling with unspoken need. Want the uncensored 18+ continuation where boundaries shatter? Only $4 per month on Patreon. Dive into 380+ fiery episodes. Aero-Sennin would be proud, he thought with a dumbfounded, drooling look as he rolled his eyes to the ceiling, his breath coming in short, heated gasps that betrayed the fire still raging within him. I think that's enough," Kushina said in a voice that trembled visibly, her body shivering with the lingering heat of their shared touches. Unlike before, she curled up and wrapped her arms around her chest for modesty, though the hard peaks of her nipples still pressed against the fabric of her resolve. "How about we wait in the bathtub, okay? I'll finish it myself." Naruto is back to reality. Oh, here is gravity. Oh, that's right. I'm just... He laughed faintly, stroking the back of his head with one hand and with his left, not really hiding his insistent hardness that throbbed relentlessly against his palm. Without waiting, he ran to the water and threw himself into it. Kushina guessed that he was, but in fact, he just wanted to hide his hardness from her, the pulsing desire making his entire body tremble with unresolved need. "He'll feel better after the bath," she quietly assured herself before pouring the water over herself. Light trickles of water lit paths of excitement, and she trembled to the depths of her soul, her skin flushing with a warmth that spread from her core outward. Experimenting, she put her hand on the chest and watched Menma dry herself. A son shouldn't treat his mother like that, she thought, and then swallowed, just as the mother should not react to him like this, her breath quickening as forbidden thoughts made her thighs press together instinctively. It was so strange. Tonight, after Menma goes to bed, she will need to jump over Minato's bones. Naruto plunged into the fragrant bath up to his lips and inhaled the steam. Nothing but ice water could cool him down and bring sanity back to his brain, yet the steam wrapped around him like a teasing embrace, heightening the ache in his hardness. Want the uncensored 18+ part where the heat becomes unbearable? Only $4 per month on Patreon, 380+ scorching episodes. He heard Kushina finish rinsing, her cheerful voice calling to him. I'm done, Menma! And her soft footsteps stepping softly on the wet tile. All the training and discipline of Jiraiya, Kakashi, and even Ebisu were put to the test when he tried to keep his eyes closed and his back turned. But she was too sexy, too beautiful, for Naruto to miss this one opportunity, her presence alone sending waves of desire crashing through him, making his pulse thunder in his ears. Without losing a drop of pride, Naruto mechanically turned around and felt his body turn to jelly, his stomach petrified, and his heart burst, the sight of her bare form igniting a fresh fire that made his hardness twitch with urgent need. Want the uncensored 18+ part where desires take over? Only $4 per month on Patreon, 380+ scorching episodes. But what he saw could not be an accusation that he had lost his burden. Kushina was an enthusiastic vision of beauty, a generosity that Jiraiya longed to see with his own eyes. No, she did not have tattoos in front, but feminine virtues were enhanced by motherhood. The usual bandages covered them well, but now they were loose and swayed in time with the movements. Her active lifestyle kept them at a high level, but the birth of a child gave her the weight that attracted the eye. Round and full, they were so gorgeous that Naruto could already feel his hardness stiffen again, throbbing painfully as his gaze lingered on the soft curves. Her nipples, as he had already seen from his own experience, had grown to sensitive buds of a pink hue. Usually beautiful circles, but under the influence of moisture they became oval, hard and inviting in the steamy air. And below, Naruto still couldn't help himself. Belly, all the fat trimmed to slightly exposed tight not bulging. Muscles, navel, a shallow depression on a flat and smooth surface. And below, between the thin lines of her waist, was her bump, strewn with scarlet hair. Not cleaned and not laid, just trimmed and well-groomed. Probably, this has something to do with her hair and father, the sight making him swallow hard, heat pooling in his core as his body reacted with a subtle shiver. Naruto chastises himself once more, corrects the situation, and turns around as soon as his mother's doppelganger lifts his foot over the bathtub. Her blissful sigh made Naruto shudder, and he sensed the irregularity of what was happening as she lowered herself into the bathtub, where droplets of his wetness were floating, the water rippling around her form and amplifying the intimate tension between them. Unaware of the trouble, Kushina plunged deep to her chin and let her hair down so that it fanned out on the surface of the water, like a sheet of red threads. She relaxed for a moment before turning her attention to her son. He stiffened again, her troubled little boy. She giggled and moved closer to him, her body gliding through the water with a grace that made his breath itch. Menma! She cooed, raising her hand to wrap her arms around his stomach. You just miss your father. He has to come back before we get out. Naruto sighed because just inches away from her lazily closed hands, his hardness was heaving, begging to pay attention to her. He felt her chest on his back, made out her hard nipples, and wished she would just step back, though the press of her soft curves against him sent shivers down his spine, fueling the pulsing desire. He cleared his throat awkwardly. I think I'll get out, he grumbled. His body was tense by the minute, and when she asked why he was doing this when they had just settled in, he replied, I don't feel comfortable. Now, Menma, just relax. Her hands clenched, prompting him to lean back against her body, which was the last thing he wanted. If you do that, you'll feel much. Twitch, twitch. She broke off when she felt him in her arms. Pulling him to her, she lowered her hands, and it didn't take long for something lower to touch her palms. At first she was confused. Instinctively feeling this, she recoiled when she identified the underwater object. Very hard, very long hardness. She almost recoiled in shock, ashamed that she had disgraced her Menma so much. She stuttered about apologizing, but before she could pull away, her back rested on the side of the bathtub. Her left leg had reflexively pushed back to move away, but was now resting on his waist, her thigh brushing against him and sending a jolt of heat through both, her breath becoming ragged. Naruto felt bad. It was a feeling of nausea, but nothing appeared. And yet his hardness was preserved, like that of a loyal puppy who needs to be scolded to scare him away. He again offered to leave and even forced himself to get up. His posture was hunched over, his caution precise, but there was no way to effectively hide the criminal straining under the cover of his hands, least of all when Kushina grabbed him by the wrist and urged him to sit down, giving her anxious eyes a brief glimpse of his throbbing hardness, the sight making her cheeks flush deeper. "Menma," she whispered, swallowing and trying not to think about exposing him, her voice laced with a tremor that mirrored the desire building within her. "It's strange," he admitted, looking away from her, his body trembling with the effort to hold back. "This happens. It's okay? She chattered again. She laughed in a manner very familiar to Naruto. Kushina took his hand and slowly pulled it away from his groin. It did not escape him that her gaze was fixed on what she had discovered before she looked up at it and put it back down. They sat with their eyes closed, facing each other. He watched her chest floating on the surface of the bathtub awkwardly, and she smiled at him. A gentle hand touched his mustachioed cheek, her fingers lingering, tracing his jawline and sending sparks of heat through his skin. "Such a thing," she said to him, "does not change my feelings for you. You are a healthy boy who grows into a man. I won't blame you for this." She tilted her head slightly, raised her shoulders, and smiled like a schoolgirl, blushing, her chest heaving with each breath as the steam amplified the charged atmosphere between them. "I will always love you, Menma." Naruto's heart pounded because being named Menma strengthened his desires. She was not his mother, she was Menma's mother. A burning desire overwhelmed him, and the need pushed him to action, his body leaning closer, drawn by the magnetic pull of her warmth. Want the uncensored 18+ part where passion ignites fully? Only $4 per month on Patreon, 380+ scorching episodes. For some time they lay on top of each other. Silence, only the sound of their breathing. Feelings returned to both of them, and they didn't even look into each other's eyes, their bodies still trembling with the aftershocks of shared heat, heavy breaths sinking in the quiet aftermath. Want the uncensored 18+ continuation that pushes boundaries? Only $4 per month on Patreon. Dive into 380+ fiery episodes.